You're listening to Mira Business FM.
Mira Business FM. It's the Morning Drive. I'm Tim Elliott. This hour, we are talking legal matters with, I said, a very special guest a couple of minutes ago, and I do mean that. She is a US qualified lawyer based here in Dubai, kind of well known between you and me, and I'm slightly excited to introduce a very well-regarded legal eagle here in Dubai. She appears regularly on different radio stations, different media. She's been quoted in the newspapers regularly here in the Emirates. She is also widely known as the TikTok lawyer, and she's in the room. It's Ludmila Yamalova. Lovely to see you.
So great to be here, Tim. Thanks for having me.
So good to have you back. We've known each other for, I don't know, I keep thinking about this and I think it's too long. I would never ask a lady's age.
No, the age, obviously, very young. I'm a child prodigy. But I think it's been 16 years.
Yeah, 15 or 16 years is where I was going. Yeah. So great to have you back. We've talked extensively on podcasts, on radio in the past. We've shared many cups of coffee talking about legal matters and less serious matters as well. Really today, what I want to do is get straight to two new laws because time is limited and I know you're very excited about the first thing that we're going to talk about. Little bits of history will come up, no doubt, but let's talk about something new. It's kind of unprecedented. I know that's a word you use when you're excited about a new regulation. And this is a new law. It's going to regulate contractors in the Emirate of Dubai. It's law number 7 of 2025. And it regulates contracting activities. This is huge news.
It is huge. You're absolutely right. It sounds pretty simple, law regulating contractors, but it's actually a very loaded concept, especially in Dubai and the UAE. And as you rightfully said, it is unprecedented, first of its kind. We've never really had a legal, dedicated framework to regulate contractors per se. And perhaps maybe we can start with who are contractors. So these are the people that show up at your house and will claim that they know how to paint, and 6 months into it, they're still there, they're still trying to paint.
You've had an issue at yours with a painter, haven't you?
We've had, and this is why, as I guess goofy as it sounds, I actually am super excited about this law because not only from my own experience of living in the UAE and Dubai for so many years and having obviously had my own experience of dealing with contractors, but even more, more notably is through vis-a-vis my clients, because I mean, obviously the base or the wealth of experience and stories that I can share and that I've sort of seen and heard is much greater through the prism or through the lens of my clients. And so many cases we've had, and I know we've talked about it before in different forums, of just people hiring contractors for 6 months and then changing their whole lives on the basis of these 6 months. They move out, they rent a property for those 6 months, and they perhaps even temporarily move schools, all relying on this let's say 6 month of period to move back into their house. Well, 6 months becomes 8 months, then it becomes 9 months, and then it's a year. And even within this period of time, the works that are being done and not being done to the level that I guess the client ultimately expected. And then there's disputes, and then the contractors want more money. The client does not want to pay more money. They're upset because they've already overstayed for 6 months. They want damages. The contractor wants even more money, and so it goes. And the thing is, a lot of the time from a legal standpoint, and I'm giving this background because it's relevant perhaps for those who will ultimately be listening to this, to get as excited as I am. So it's just the context of how things used to be and how they still are today. And in so many cases, it's the amount of money we're talking about, the amount of sort of money that is itself, the tangible, is not so much that to justify a warrant for one party or another to actually go to court. Yeah, okay. So that's why a lot of the times people just, they're exhausted, and they just give up the fight, right? Because they would have paid something to the contractors, and if they don't, and they need the permits or the NOCs or the approvals from the contractors before they can actually move into the house. So they need those permits that certain jobs have been done. So they feel a little bit in the corner, and so at the end they will make that last payment just so they can get the final approvals and be able to move into their house, for example. So that's why at the end a lot of these disputes do not make it into the court and do not really get properly resolved, because it's just there's not enough at stake for either party to actually fight it out. But we've seen enough of these cases that come to us, and where people feel very upset. They want to file lawsuits, let's say against the contractors, and we go through the exercise. Okay, so what can we really actually file a lawsuit for? So what went wrong? And it's just what went wrong. It perhaps can be described in two different categories. One, in terms of the quality of work or workmanship or lack thereof, and the other in terms of timing.
Yeah.
So the timing, okay, it's something a little easier to perhaps explain that, listen, in the contract it says, let's say 6 months. It's been 9 months as you have not finished. So we have suffered damages for the duration of those additional 3 months. Then there's always the comeback from the contractor. Yes, but you requested additional work here, but then there's a response from the client. Yes, but I requested this because your first go around was not good enough, and so it kind of goes around. But at least in terms of timing, it's one argument that is easier to justify from a client to the contractor to, for example, to either require them to perform faster or to add on the jobs, or to demand some sort of compensation by way of, for example, not paying the last installment. Now, with regards to the quality of workmanship, that's where the actual problems come in. Because from a legal standpoint, this is where, in most of the cases, we've seen it's been difficult for us to advise the client, it's worth it for you to go to court because the work that has been performed has not been performed to the right standard. So what is that right standard? That's been missing. Yeah. So unless it was detailed to a very specific extent in the agreement, then there's nothing really, there's no benchmark, there's nothing to kind of hold the contractor responsible to in terms of, okay, you were supposed to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in terms of quality, for example, right? So I'll give you a specific example, and these are real examples that I've had. Painting, it's from a client, right? By calling a client.
I knew we'd get back to painting.
Yeah, I told you, this is still a painful subject. So this is from a client. It was a European national, Swiss. They had just moved to the UAE not long ago. So they hired a contractor. They hired, one of the jobs was to paint. So from somebody coming from Switzerland, their understanding of what the paint should look like is so they have certain understanding. So when they come back a month or two later, there is a paint on the wall, but the paint is one that, you walk by and there you get sort of smudge, leave the smudges.
Jackson Pollock kind of idea?
So it's paint that easily marked, easily stained, comes off and so, for example, what the client expected based on their experience in Europe is that there will be this sort of eggshell, glossy paint that's washable and so on and so forth. Fair enough, right? But his expectation was based on his previous experience. But that level of detail was not in the contract, right? So the contractor, look, you said in the job description here, it says paint. Look, I painted. I have proof. So from a legal standpoint, how do you argue that, okay, yes, you painted, but you didn't paint to the level that what? I mean, and there's two ways of doing it. One is that you specifically mentioned in the contract that the paint I want is eggshell, grade such and such, glossiness, X, Y, Z, and has to be washable. So that one way to do it is to do it by contract, and the other way, if there are some other standards, general contracting standards that will spell out what the quality of these sort of workmanship must be. And that's where my client was coming from. That's why he did not see the need to specify that in the contract, because from his experience in Europe, in Switzerland in particular case, this is kind of a known thing. This is what the contractors are held to, the standards that they're held to in that country.
Yeah, which highlights the position here and why this is so unprecedented. I mean, it's a really good example because it could be, this, in theory, will end the issues when you either completely remodel your house or the maintenance contractor comes in to, unblock the sink, for example. It will set out the guidelines across a whole spectrum of potential issues, and that's what it's trying to address, isn't it?
Indeed, it's trying to address every aspect of contracting industry.
Yeah.
So, obviously, there's so much I'm mindful of not making it a little too tedious, but at a high level, we can talk about it at a high level and kind of drill down a little bit in terms of some of the specifics. So one, for example, is licensing requirements. Every contractor will have to be subject to specific licensing requirements.
Right.
Within that, and that has to be a specific license for a specific type of contracting work. So let's say if you're an electrician, you need to have a permit. Your license has to reflect that you can do electrical works. And if you have a license that allows you to do electrical works, you can only do that. You cannot go and paint. Right? So, for example, if you're in plumbing, then your license has to reflect that you're in plumbing, and you cannot do painting. Again, that's going to be go back.
This is your bugbear today.
Yes. So the licensing. So first, you'll need to have a proper license, meaning economic business license. Within that license has to reflect a specific category of the services of the works that you'll be doing. And within that, and again, each one of them has more layers to it, but let me kind of just set out the stage. Within that, whenever you hire anyone, so they have to all be, because contractors, obviously, they rely on a team of a crew. So each one of those employees, they will have to be properly licensed as well under your company. Not only do they need to have proper employment agreements and such, they also need to be sponsored by you. And also, and this is one of the biggest one, is that, and this is both at a corporate level and at the employee level, in order to obtain a contractor's license and to ultimately be hired into a contracting company as one of the contractors, you need to show competence and skill. In other words, you can't just, if I wanted to become a contractor, I don't have the skill to open a company as a contractor. So I need to show that I have some experience, some background in contracting. And equally so, whenever I hire people, each one of those people, they need to also show competence in a specific field. Which means what, Tim? And you and I know that it means that you have to show, do you have a degree, that you maybe a degree or experience, that you studied electrical engineering, or whatever it is, electrical services that you need to know to be able to be an electrician, or plumbing, or painting. So there will be special boards, and in Dubai. So by the way, this is a Dubai law, as you rightfully said, but this is important to highlight. This is for Dubai, not the UAE, but perhaps it will become a model for the rest of the country over time. But so there will be, the Dubai municipality will set standards for each one of the type of contracting jobs in terms of what competence and qualifications and experience will be required.
Well, that's interesting, because that means there will also be a regulating body formed.
There will be
or bodies.
Yes, a whole series of bodies.
Right,
yes,
okay.
And so it starts out with Dubai municipality, but then there will also be other new authorities set up, kind of under the umbrella of Dubai municipality, that in particular will oversee all the technical competence and certificates and qualifications, and they will be issuing exactly that, certificates. Right, there will be a certificate that you're a contractor in such and such job. Now you can combine some of these experiences, but one way or the other. So in terms from a legal standpoint, you will need to have a proper license. That license has to be specifically designated for the jobs that you're applying. Each one of your employees or crew have to have specific competence and have the right license and the right visa. And you can only apply for works or bid for works that are proportionate to your expertise and the number of people that you have. So which means the whole issue of subcontractors, and I'm sure we can all relate that. So many of the jobs here rely on the subcontractors. So you have all those people coming to your house, and you have no idea who they are, who they work for. And if you actually were to sit them all down and ask for their Emirates IDs, if they had those, passports, your labor contracts, they would be perhaps belong to 10 different entities.
It's a grey area, isn't it?
It's
in many cases,
yes.
Let's put it that way. No, that's a very good point. So if you're a general maintenance company, there are many reputable general maintenance companies at Dubai. We have to kind of state that. But you need to have very specifically qualified or experienced people in plumbing, electrical, in whatever aspect of painting you might be doing, all these kinds of things. That's really a huge change. That's creating almost a whole new industry.
It is, and there will also be a public register where all these contracting companies and the specific contractors will be listed. And you have to apply for annual renewals, again, for the company and for the employees, which means that, let's say, if you've performed a job and you had some complaints filed against you, then you will not be able to renew your license for next year. So this is not, okay, let me just put all my best foot forward and do everything right to get this license, and now I'm set for life. No, it's actually subject for renewal every year. And I have to tell you, to me, I liken it to the legal profession. And that's obviously the one I know, because it's sort of very similar to that. So for us to become lawyers here, it's not enough to just come say, I know law, I studied law. You need, in Dubai, that is, you need to show that you have actually studied law, and you need to have the certificates and degrees. They have to be properly attested, by the way. Here, the same sort of thing applies. And then you need to work for a company or for an entity that can provide legal services. In my case, it's obviously my law firm. Yep. That firm needs to be registered with a government authority that regulates it. In my case, it's the Dubai Legal Affairs Department. There will be Dubai Municipality and others sort of that will fall under its umbrella. And so then I'm registered. So I have a commercial license, but I also have the Legal Affairs Department license as a firm, and then also the employees of the firm, the legal consultants, also separately have to be licensed by the Legal Affairs Department. Right. And we have annual renewals both for the firm and for each one of the consultants on, obviously, the regular basis. So the way I look at this law, it's very similar in terms of its structure to how the legal profession is regulated in Dubai now. And to your earlier point, yes, so in that way, it in a way creates a brand new industry, because the contracting industry as we know it today will be no more, and there'll be a very new, regulated, much more sort of competent and more professionally and I guess in regulated industry.
I mean, to all intents and purposes, we're talking about standards and accountability. That's really that's my main takeaway so far.
For sure, yes. And listen, Dubai has a lot to be proud of. I mean, look around. I mean, there's so many of the newbies who come to Dubai just gobsmacked at how beautiful it is. So they've been able to manage and build all these beautiful things without having this law in place, right? And all of us who live here, we still remain here because of the lifestyle, and so obviously this place has been able to manage and build a beautiful city and a safe city without having these new standards. But as any evolving and any developing and more mature, I guess ultimately economy does, it was just you layer it on, and you raise your standards, you raise your bar. And that's what they're doing. So they're basically taking all their success and now raising the bar further. And now in many ways, I mean, they are making it more competitive, and competitive is good, right? Because competitive means that it will ensure that kind of gets rid of the riffraff.
Well, it does make me think in the short term, this is going to be, you're going to be working with, hopefully, in theory, more reputable companies. Could that mean slightly more expense? But I guess as time goes on, short to medium term, you'll see prices, competition has its way of evening things out. So in my mind, I would wonder about that in the first instance. But you're right. If you raise accountability and you raise standards, things can only get better, can't they?
Well, absolutely. I mean, and that's, I guess, the prices could go up if we believe that there are not enough people with the right competence and credentials right now to apply for these licenses. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think this is just going to force all these people to abide by specific norms that are now in place, right? So, but in many cases, it will be the same people that are already doing a lot of these works, and may get rid of some of the other ones that are kind of have been creaming off and leaching off and without the proper credentials. But because I guess you can consider these as barriers to entry, but the barriers to entry are the healthy barriers to entry, and that is basically requiring for the contractors to show that they actually know what it is they're going to be charging people for. So I don't think they are so onerous as to close the doors to many other contractors. So I think the barriers to entry are just the general professional barriers to entry, that if you want to enter a certain profession, you need to have certain professional qualifications to be able to do a good job within that.
Well, you need to be able to show the experience, don't you? And
yes,
hopefully there is a qualification behind that, if that's really key to the thing. We've got about 5 minutes left. I know there's a great deal more to talk about. We've covered, I guess, the salient points of the law, but I'm interested in your thoughts on how will the new law offer a way to end disputes? Because disputes is clearly what you really deal with in your practice. So we're going to see a dedicated authority to hear those contractor-client disputes. How will that?
Yes, indeed. So perhaps before I answer that question, let me kind of set out the framework, the timing for this law. So the law was issued in July of this year, 2025, but it does not come into effect until January 2026.
And this is when it's in the official gazette. That's
No, it's already been published in the official gazette.
Oh, it is in the official
So the law is issued, and so if you recall from our many other discussions in the past, so there's different timings that can be at play whenever a new law is issued. So, but the first is when it's published in the official gazette. So this particular law has been published in the official gazette, and the law can either be effective as of the time that it's published, or there could be a special note in the law that this law will come into effect at a later stage.
Effectively a grace period, I guess, to allow people to catch up.
No, there's another period. So
is there?
Yes. So the law is published. It is an official gazette. It will come into effect, which means that people will be able to start kind of citing it, relying on it, right? Because as of January 2026, apologies, but. The contractors in the contracting industry will have 1 year after that as a grace period to become compliant. So then we're talking about January 2027 is when you actually will be able to really hold their feet to the fire, so to speak, in terms of making sure that they're compliant with not just these regulations, because I mean what we're talking about right now is just the law. It's the law, it's kind of the skeleton, the bare bones, the sort of the legal of the new industry that this will now be governed by. But then in addition to this, as we know, there'll be additional regulations, there'll be executive decrees, there'll be circulars, and there will be authorities that will be formed as described in this law, and those authorities will further issue additional circulars and decrees under it. So we need time for those authorities to form, and as you rightfully pointed out, there will also be, at least there's a mention in the law, of a special mediation center or dispute center to deal with these contractors' disputes, which I think is an amazing idea and a great development. But naturally, we need time for those authorities to be formed. I mean, so that's the year. So we're talking about January. So law is in the books, but it will only become effective as of January this year, 2026, and will only be able to really, really rely on it as of January 2027, unless there will be further grace periods and further extensions.
But I mean, in the meantime, you're working towards the new standards, and that in and of itself will change the industry, I guess, or develop, the maintenance and contracting industries.
Well, indeed, so that year, between 2026, is the year for everybody to become compliant, to get to know the law, to understand the law, and start changing their practices so they can be compliant.
And the knowledge that there's somewhere to go if something does go wrong. That changes mindset, because one of the other sides of this, when it comes to your home and where you stay and where you bring up your children, the things you do in your free time, it's an emotive area, this, isn't it, as well?
Oh, for sure, absolutely. So, but also, here now, there is, again, as per the law, there will be lots of public resources, right? There'll be public resources about who the licensed contractors are, who the the contracting companies are, also what the standards are. So there will be published standards. Okay, so to your point, in terms of having some sort of certainty, having some kind of a benchmark, something to be able to rely on. So all that will be published and will continue to be developed and will be accessible to the public, which gives the public confidence and security to know that that when they enter into a relationship, what they can hold their various suppliers and contractors accountable to.
I always love how excited you are. You're such a legal geek, and I mean that as a compliment. As you know, when you're excited about a new law and the possibilities.
This is unprecedented. It truly is. I mean, there's a lot to be excited, and I hope that you're as excited as I am.
I am. I'm swept up in your enthusiasm. Look, we've got 1 minute, just 30 seconds from you, just to sum up how this new law changes things. Your kind of overall view.
Well, I think it will make the contracting industry and therefore the real estate industry a lot more regulated and a lot more professional. Therefore, it has the intent and the objective, and I think it's realistic to reduce disputes and increase quality in terms of workmanship, in terms of services, and overall, then obviously raise the satisfaction of the public in terms of the quality of the services they receive and the sort of the lack of disputes that they will have to deal with. So overall, it's raising the bar. It's raising the bar in terms, not just for the contracting industry, because remember, we're talking about is the real estate. So it's raising the bar for everybody in Dubai, and kind of introducing a new level of professionalism and competence into the real estate and contracting industry, and obviously for the legal profession as well.
I'm very excited. Amelia Malova, US qualified lawyer, the TikTok lawyer. Always good to talk to you. Thank you.
It's great to be here, Tim.
It's Mira Business FM.
Mira Business